Well, Governor Greg Abbott, Texas, has now defied a Supreme Court ruling that basically just says, "Move this barbed wire, you monster." You see, he put a bunch of barbed wire in front of a river that prevents migrants from crossing into the U.S. It's important to say it doesn't stop illegals. It stops migrants. He's dictating U.S. policy by default when he does this. He killed a pregnant woman by doing this, and damn near killed a young family, which we'll hear from in a moment. The Biden administration finally said he must stop, and then he said he won't. So it went to the court. Once again, America allowed the evil thing to keep happening. Well, we got a decision on it. That in and of itself, shameful. That in and of itself bears examination. We should clarify that when the government says stop, federal government tells a state government you must stop doing a thing, we don't first wait for a judge's ruling. First thing that happens is state government obeys. Then we get a ruling and proceed from there. However, everybody just sort of let it happen, so we've established that's how it's going to happen. State government didn't stop. Court ruling came down all the way to the Supreme Court, and, yep, they said, Greg Abbott, you must obey the federal government because you're not president of Texas, you're governor of Texas. Texas is one of 50 states. Texas is not its own country. Which means when you act a certain way with the United States border, you are affecting the border policy for all 50 states. Sort of like how I can't just say, we're not letting in white people in anymore. You know, the Ambassador Bridge there, we're not going to let too many of those suspicious whites. Yeah. Gretchen Whitmer can't do that. I can't do that because that is U.S. border policy, despite the fact that my state is a border state. It's no different in Texas. Yet here we go.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott said his state will continue to hold the line against the Biden administration's border crisis. Almost all of the Republican governors are rallying.
Let's be clear, because I never hear these people correcting this. There is no crisis. The only crisis I can think of is Greg Abbott's treatment of immigrants. That's it. The way he treats immigrants. That's the only crisis. The crisis is a backlog of people requesting to go through the system. But brown people attempting to move here is an invasion in Greg Abbott's eyes. We're being invaded if it's not white people that want to move. If there was 10,000 Norwegians that were trying to move here, Greg Abbott would give them his house and his car. I'm being facetious. He wouldn't give anybody it. But he would force some Native Americans off their land and give that to the Norwegians. But these are brown people, and Greg Abbott is scum. So it's an invasion. But she ought to know better. It's not a border crisis unless you are considering Greg Abbott's actions to be the crisis, which I do.
Behind Abbott in his border showdown. 25 Republican governors signed a letter supporting Abbott and affirming
Look at that map. Look at that map. Let's just be clear. These motherfuckers are going to need to be dealt with. All of them. All of these punks need to leave office. We need to make a note of who they all are. We need to ensure that their political fortunes go down the tubes. Obviously, all Republicans from a political point of view are the enemy. All Republicans need to be tossed out of power. But specifically these governors. These are people who do not believe in the structure of the U.S. government. These are people that want to go back to pre-Civil War times. These people are a threat separate from the J6 crowd. It doesn't mean they aren't part of the J6 crowd. I'm positive they all are. But separate from that, the letter they signed says that they do not believe the system of government that they are operating in. This is a problem. They have to go. However, this is not what you can do episode, so to speak. Not a. This is more of a think session, because rolling them out in mass, getting a paddy wagon, sorry for the offensive term, and tossing them in it isn't reason. But we, the people, need to make note of all of these punks and ensure that we put special effort into destroying their power. If you find out anything embarrassing about them, share it. Look for embarrassing things about them. Look for scandals. Look for people who are not their spouses leaving their house the wee hours. Any dirty trick you can think of. You need to end their political careers.
That the state has the constitutional right to defend itself, including adding more razor wire along the Rio Grande to secure the border. CBS News immigration reporter Camilo Montoya Galvez is in Eagle Pass.
Just want to say one more time, they are not defending themselves. They are not defending themselves. They're just they're just murdering immigrants. That's it.
Past Texas. Camille, good morning.
Good morning, Dana. The Department of Homeland Security had given Texas a Friday deadline to say that it would immediately grant federal Border Patrol agents access to this park behind me, but Texas is showing no signs of backing down, paving the way for another legal clash. Texas is doubling down on its efforts at the U.S.-Mexico border. The state is defying federal demands to allow Border Patrol into a public park in Eagle Pass. National Guard soldiers are fortifying the park with armed vehicles, fencing, and razor wire. This is the razor wire at the center of an intensifying political feud between the state of Texas and the Biden administration. Texas argues that this is repelling migrants from crossing into the country illegally, but the Biden administration says that it is preventing Border Patrol from doing their jobs. While the wire has forced some migrants to return to Mexico, others like Rosa Lara and her 4-year-old son, Tiago, still managed to find a way into the U.S. after crossing the Rio Grande. ¿Cómo fue esa experiencia? How was that experience?
Sí, es un poco difícil.
It was difficult. ¿Y por qué? Why? ¿Tenías miedo? Were you scared?
Sí, miedo. Miedo.
¿Por qué? Why?
Porque el río estaba hondo. Sí,
The river was deep. Y tenías miedo que de pronto te podías ahogar. You were scared you could drown?
sí, ahogar y más que todo el niño.
Especially the kid. You were scared that he could drown. While the White House has called Texas's actions inhumane, some local leaders support them.
Governor Abbott is doing what the federal government should have done a long time ago. I'm not saying about the razor wire, and I'm not saying about, but about curtailing the influx of migrants into the United States.
No, F this
if
guy.
that would have happened
I'm not saying about the razor wire. I'm not brave enough to stand by the fact that I want to kill a pregnant girl. Exactly what Greg Abbott did. I'm not standing by that. I don't have the courage to stand by that. I know that's the topic we're talking about, specifically that razor wire, but I don't have the guts to say that that should be. I'm just saying brown people are bad. There's no invasion. There is no invasion. The only immigration problem we have is that southern states have botched it so badly. They have screwed up the process so intentionally and horrifically that we have a massive backlog. They've used bureaucracy to create a problem. But the problem isn't these teeming masses coming to get you. It's these teeming masses trying to queue up. It's a traffic jam that they caused by screwing up all the signals. Now he's throwing bricks at the car. Biden said, stop. And he said, nah. We cannot let it stand. We're going to talk about this in a moment.
Happened years ago, we wouldn't be in the situation that we're in right now.
Government data released on Friday confirmed that officials here along the U.S.-Mexico border processed more than 300,000 migrants in December, a record high. While border officials have seen a dramatic drop in illegal crossings since then, they are bracing for another crisis. Michelle?
Camilo, thank you.
They processed 300,000 migrants. Why were there so many to process? There was a massive backlog. What did processing them do? Cut down on illegal immigration. There it is. Here's the answer. So let's start by addressing the non-problem. We don't have a problem with illegal immigration. We have a problem with legal immigration being carried out incompetently on the side of the U.S. The Republicans are doing it. The Republicans are the problem. As with all things, the Republicans are the problem. Take that anger that's boiling up, ball it up, throw it over there. The Republican politicians are. They know they are. I think everybody involved with it knows they are. So let's deal with that. We need a smoother process, an easier process for immigrating to this country. That's what we do in the long term. I think we cannot leave it to the states to facilitate it. There should be federal facilities that handle this entirely. Simply say these states have demonstrated that they cannot be trusted to handle this problem. Just like Greg Abbott can't be trusted to make a reliable electric grid in Texas. He cannot be trusted to carry out U.S. border policy. Here's my suggestion. There needs to be a punishment for what Greg Abbott has done. He's defied the Supreme Court. Separate from whether or not you think there's an immigration crisis. Again, I stress there isn't one. But separate from that, we cannot have governors defying the courts. We cannot have governors deciding which laws they will follow and which they won't. Just can't have it. That's not how a country works. That's not how the United States works. That is not how the state and federal governments work. He needs to be punished. He needs to suffer consequences. Here is what I recommend. Let's solve two problems at once. We need to give other governors reason to hesitate the next time they are thinking about defying the United States federal government. Punishment is the way to do that. What are they expecting? They're expecting what my first instinct was. My first instinct was to go have some feds kick in Greg Abbott's door, drag him out of his gigantic four-post bed, I don't know, just drive it off a cliff. But that's what he wants. He wants us to attempt something like that. He wants me to advocate for that, so that he'll create more support for the insane stuff that he wants to do. You got to be smarter than he is. And fortunately, it's not hard to be smarter than Greg Abbott. So here's the consequence I propose instead. Take away some of his responsibilities. Patronize him, while at the same time insulting him, belittling him, and punishing him. Say this, Joe Biden. Governor Abbott has demonstrated that he is unable to solve the crisis on his border. He is resorted to putting up barbed wire and killing pregnant women. A young mother, 19-year-old, died because of Greg Abbott. He's created a crisis at the U.S. border. He has made us all unsafe with his incompetence. And now he refuses to follow a order from the Supreme Court. His incompetence can no longer be allowed to endanger the United States. And he certainly will not be allowed to dictate United States border policy. So the United States federal government will control the borders. His chief complaint, although I believe it is ludicrous, his chief complaint is that the U.S. has not protected Texas. Very well. The U.S. will protect Texas. This border crossing will be controlled by the U.S. National Guard. I, Joe Biden, will set the policies. I'll handle it all. I'll pay for it all. It's being taken out of the hands of the incompetent. The Greg Abbott administration is incompetent. They are also disloyal. They don't follow the rule of law. That will need to be addressed. That will be addressed in a court of law. But until that is settled, U.S. border policy will be handled by the U.S. federal government. And that's it. Remove his ability entirely, both to complain and to make the situation worse. That is his goal, to make the situation worse. So what I would recommend Joe Biden do, take control of the situation. He literally asked for it. Greg Abbott literally asked for it. His reasoning for what he is doing is that the federal government somehow failed to keep Texas safe from an invasion. Very well. Have the U.S. federal government be put completely in charge of the Texas border, because the Texas border is also the U.S. border where it touches Mexico. Greg Abbott might be competent enough to handle relations in between states within the U.S., so he can still control the border, touches other states, unless and until we get complaints from them about what a terrible job he's doing. I mean, I wouldn't trust him to watch a banana stand on his own for 5 minutes, but okay, we'll let him do that. But that's my proposal to y'all, and I want to know what you think. I think it would be wise of Joe Biden to simply wrest control of this situation from his hand. If you're watching the VOD, let me know what you think in the comments. And if you're watching live, let's have that conversation now. What should Joe Biden do? How should Greg Abbott be punished for his treacherous behavior?